So after about 4 years of being around, FNAF AR Special Delivery, the Five Nights at Freddy's mobile game, is finally getting discontinued. It has been taken down from the App Store and soon its servers will be shut down as well. This shouldn't come as a huge surprise though. The last proper update for the game was the Dark Circus update at the end of 2021. Since then the game has been coasting with old events rotating and few updates, so the writing was on the wall. And in a few weeks we will be at the final curtain call. So today we will be talking about it, about FNAF Special Delivery, a mobile game with some new and creative mechanics, but if we're honest, it had problems on every front. Now, I'm not saying the game is bad, but I am saying that there's a reason why there's such wide varying opinions about it. From how the game played, to how it was updated, to how it was monetized, FNAF AR had issues that constantly weighed it down. We'll be discussing them, the perks, the dying breath, the cut content, and the fallout. Let's start with what FNAF AR is. Now this is normally when I would go into a long diatribe about dates leading up to the release and teasers and all of that, but I don't feel like doing that today. As far as I'm aware, FNAF AR received a few light teasers before its release in November of 2019, but nothing worth devoting a lot of time to. And considering that the last update was in November of 2021, that means it survived for exactly 2 years of consistent updates. I can't believe that. Good heavens. But let's jump right into the gameplay. As I said earlier, FNAF AR sports some unique mobile gameplay. Unlike a typical mobile game that's like a runner or a match 3 or something of the like, FNAF AR involved confronting animatronics in an encounter that sounds like it would feel like Pokemon Go, but honestly doesn't. Animatronics slowly come to your location until one arrives and you're taken into a battle with them. Originally there wasn't any warning or way to decline a battle, but later in the game it was updated so you would know who you're encountering before being thrown in, and can use tokens to basically send them off without losing your streak. The heads up was definitely beneficial, as with the harder characters, if you don't figure out who you're up against quickly, you could get bodied fast. So how do you take on these animatronic threats? Well, there is a basic combat and evade system that receives some changes depending on the specific animatronic. I will go into these specific examples when I get to the animatronics section. Basic gameplay is this. An animatronic, let's say Freddy, arrives. They begin to walk around you but are cloaked and invisible. You need to use their footsteps or watch static hints to know where they are, as eventually they will charge. If they do not reveal themselves in a charge, it is a fake charge. If they do, it's a real charge and you must tase them or they will jump scare you. Getting a tase in used to defeat the animatronics outright, though later updates implemented a health bar system where you had to tase them more than once. This became an issue that I'll get to in a minute. There's also haywiring. Animatronics will appear and glitch out, and you will either have to look away with a mask, or look at them with a mask, or so on, depending on the character. You also have a flashlight that you can use to spot the static that signals where an animatronic is. It has a battery that recharges over time and that you can use spare batteries for, or buy batteries for, and some animatronics drain them faster. When you defeat animatronics, there's a chance you will collect their suits and CPU chips. And then in the workshop you can somewhat build your animatronics, which you will then send out to attack other players. You can use parts that you collect in encounters and elsewhere to repair them, as, over time, the animatronics will wear down and start to look grungy and nasty. Shove some screws into them, it'll fix them up fine. But to power them you'll need Remnant. Unlike the gooey metal substance in the mainline games, Remnant and Special Delivery are bright balls of light. They are basically souls without the metal. You're in your house with Remnant and Shadow Remnant balls, and you try to collect the light kind until Freddy breaks down your door and an encounter commences. Or at least, that's how it used to be. When the game came out, you could enter Remnant farming mode at any time, and if you were in this mode when an animatronic wandered in, you would be pushed directly into a battle. Apparently this was changed, and now the chance of popping into a Remnant collecting segment is random. You are trying to avoid the Shadow Remnant, and if you collect too much, it spawns an enemy to hunt you down. Shadow Bonnie. I'll save him for the animatronic section though. When the game came out, there was a streak system where certain animatronics, the harder ones, would only appear when a certain streak was reached, such as Endo being the lowest, Chica and Bonnie appearing a few levels in, Foxy being around 4 levels in, etc. I think I recall that this was tweaked later on, but I think the streak system still stayed about like that. So this gameplay sounds like a breath of fresh air, and unlike many mobile games, actually fits with the feel of the franchise. You're basically doing what you do in the mainline games, surviving killer animatronics, just with some changes to fit the new format. But unfortunately, this unique gameplay was sort of the first nail in the coffin for FNAF AR. See, the problem is that this game doesn't exactly fit the mobile format. Well, what do I mean? Well, FNAF AR isn't the type of mobile game that you can sit and play at like a doctor's office or waiting somewhere. You have to be up on your feet in a room that you can turn around in, so likely not in public, because unlike Pokemon Go, seeing someone spinning in circles is much less likely to get you to join in on catching a shiny Spinda. That doesn't mean it's unplayable. It just means the market's a little narrowed. So how did the gameplay work? Well, before I answer that, let me quickly cover one more segment. Numerous crashes and hardware demands. Maybe because of the AR capabilities, being able to track an animatronic in real time and watch them rush in, but the game was very taxing. I had a brand new iPhone when this game came out, and it was overheating it within only a few minutes of playing, and it regularly crashed. I would get in usually 2 encounters and it would crash on the 3rd, or 1 and then crash on the 2nd if the first was too long. Here comes that issue about giving animatronics health bars. Never know when the game would crash. And this usually killed my streak. Sometimes the game would maybe not register the disconnection as a loss, but most of the time it did. So what I would have to do is play 1 or 2 encounters, then stop, turn my phone off, and come back hours later. Needless to say, streaks never got that high for me. Now, before you assume it was just a me thing, I double-checked, and I certainly wasn't the only person with these issues. FNAF AR is a demanding game even for a brand new phone, which is a problem because, again, most of your players are not going to have top-of-the-line phones to play with. Remember, only a small section of your player base is going to spend money on the game, so that can be a problem. There was also this issue that I think only I and a few rare others had, where even if you had connected an Apple and Facebook account, upon updating your progress would just disappear. I had gotten Circus Baby and lost her within a week because I disappeared after an update. And I did send a message to Illumix, and after a while they replied with a, "Well, we don't see you there." So yeah, that sucked. But it wouldn't have sucked so much if I could have just gotten to that streak again. But at that point, I was having a lot of trouble so much as logging in. So me losing Baby isn't as much of a skill issue as me not being able to get to the point of getting her back. The closest I got was actually battling Baby, and the game crashed and booted me. That was actually when I quit playing. Wonder why? But what do I think about the gameplay? Well, despite what I just said about the many problems with the game, I do like the gameplay. It's cool and unique. And like I said, it does feel tailored towards FNAF, but it comes with some hiccups when it comes to performance that held it back. And while I commend taking a step to making this game be more like a Five Nights at Freddy's game than, say, something easier like a Match 3 or a Dead by Daylight clone, I feel like it definitely needed more work. The execution was clunky, not just on the mechanic side, at least not in the beginning, but in the infrastructure. Now, before I get onto the animatronics, I should mention the photo booth mode. This seems like an odd aside, but this will be important going further. In this mode, you could take pictures of the animatronics you collected. The animations were a little limited, but you could do various angles and sizes, so it was pretty neat. This mode came in way too late, only being released in February of 2021, a year and few months after the game was released. And you had to purchase it with 4,000 tokens. Now, I haven't gotten to the monetization yet. I will after I tackle the animatronics. But even though this is currency you can win in-game, it will take ages to pull that much together. For example, you can get 10 tokens per ad you watch, and note that you will eventually run out of ads for the day, or as an event present, which has a chance of giving you 25. Again, I'll go into monetization later, but in this case, photo booth mode shouldn't have been locked behind anything. This is a major feature. It should just be out in the open. And as far as I'm aware, photo booth mode never went free, and that includes now with the end-of-life discounts. Maybe, I haven't double-checked. Which is a shame because really, that would have added a lot to FNAF AR. This could have brought a lot of life into the game, and should have 100% been there on release. It would have also made collecting the various animatronics a little more valuable. Speaking of which, let's get into the animatronics. FNAF AR released with 7 animatronics, and throughout its lifetime, more were added at a somewhat snail-like crawl. In fact, one of the biggest complaints from the community was the lack of animatronics over skins later on in development. And as I will get into later, at least one teased animatronic we never got. But there's something way more interesting about that story. We'll save that for later. So let's go through the animatronics. FNAF AR introduced a slew of familiar faces, many with new voices, or voice lines at least, to accompany them. So let's go through them one at a time. And, to be noted, I'm not going to do an extreme deep dive into each of these characters, but I will give a pretty good summary so you know, basically, the feel of them. First is Endo. He is the easiest animatronic to fight, the most bare bones of the bunch, if you would. He walks around and fake charges, like I explained in the gameplay section. He doesn't have any voice lines, but you will still become quite familiar with him every time your streak resets. Endo has 2 skins, Flamethrower Endo, self-explanatory, and Deep Sea Endo, who sort of looks like an anglerfish. Next is Freddy himself.
It looks like someone wasn't ready for Freddy to come to the party.
Freddy is the next animatronic you may encounter, as he and his bandmates Chica and Bonnie are commonly encountered in the lower streaks. Freddy plays almost exactly like the Endo. I believe he's supposed to be harder, but in-game he kind of feels about the same. The significant change being that Freddy has an official voice now, and will chat with you while circling like a buzzard.
Now, all that fear there isn't helping either of us.
Freddy has 2 skins as well, Shamrock Freddy, a green Freddy decked out for St. Patrick's Day, and Firework Freddy, a cool shades-wearing Freddy ready for the 4th of July. Next is Chica, who plays a lot like Freddy and the Endo, except instead of voice lines you can only hear breathing, and she's slightly more difficult to pin down. Emphasis on slightly. She has 3 skins, Liberty Chica, looking like the Statue of Liberty, Sizzling Summer Chica, who is pretty much just Chica but on fire, and Red Riding Hood Chica, who is dressed like a grim Little Red Riding Hood but with a moldy cupcake hiding in her basket. Then there's Bonnie, who is virtually the same as Chica, to possibly nobody's surprise. Where Bonnie does stand out is that he got 4 skins, twice as many as his bandmates, and some of the most of any animatronic. These were Chocolate Bonnie, the Chocolate Bunny, Melted Chocolate Bonnie but suffering, Easter Bonnie, the White Bunny, and Blackheart Bonnie, the black glass rabbit with a pulsing red heart. Next is Captain Foxy.
Shall we parley? Just kidding.
Foxy gets a slew of new voice lines, though his voice returns from Ultimate Custom Night, so unlike Freddy's, it isn't new. He is also the one classic bandmate who requires the highest streak and is arguably the hardest because of his speed. Though I say arguably because Foxy is still pretty easy to deal with, having the same basic mechanics as Freddy in the gang, just fake charging and haywiring a lot more. Foxy got 3 skins. Radioactive Foxy, a bright green Foxy who has been featured in a ton of merch. Big Bad Wolf Foxy, who actually has 2 forms in a wolf and a grandma form, and Ringleader Foxy, who will come back quite a bit later. Balloon Boy,
Hello?
is the first toy animatronic brought into the game and the only one released at launch. While he plays very much like Chica and Bonnie, his small size means that you have to keep your eyes down or he might creep up on you. He doesn't have new voice lines per se, but he does have new noises. Balloon Boy also has 3 skins in the form of the Mud-Clawed Swamp Balloon Boy, the Sharp-Toothed Icicle Gremlin Frostbite Balloon Boy, and Wannabe Aeronaut Jetpack Balloon Boy. Next up is Circus Baby, the first sister location animatronic and the only one upon release.
I wonder what will happen when I try to scoop you out of your carton.
Now, Circus Baby is the first animatronic that might give you significant trouble. It's hard to detect her, and she's a lot more aggressive, with her quick to jump scare if you don't shock her quickly or look away fast enough when she haywires, especially when she haywires. However, she doesn't have any additional mechanics. She does have some new voice lines though.
Soon, you will be as broken as I am.
Baby has 2 skins, Broiler Baby, a burning baby with an oven belly, and Heartsick Baby, a purple-themed baby with cupid wings and a bow. Now we get to Springtrap. Oh boy, Springtrap. If I may briefly break away from the unbiased explanation of the characters for a moment, Springtrap was always a pain in the neck. Fitting, I know. So Springtrap was the hardest animatronic upon the initial release. He moves fast, he's hard to track, and the most annoying part is this haywire mechanic where if his eyes glow white, you must stare at them until they turn red or look away, and if they're red, you have to look away immediately. Sounds simple, right? 2 problems. First of all, this is insanely quick, and it's not like pressing a button, you've got to swing your phone away. Plus, the color difference is sort of faint, especially when occasionally red and blue glitch bars appear on the screen. And the worst part, he takes forever to wear down, at least it feels like it. He also has new lines.
I can taste the fear in your breath.
Got you.
Yeah, self-explanatory. As fate would have it, Springtrap is tied with Bonnie for the most skins. The poisonous tumor-laden toxic Springtrap, the currently on fire flaming Springtrap, the heavily decorated Equinox-themed The Curse, and Clown Springtrap, who does give me Dead by Daylight's vibes now that I look closer. But virtually impossible to get because you need to get a high enough streak, which you simply might not get with the constant crashing and the coin flip of whether the game considers it a failure or not. That's the real curse. Not to mention the fact that in events you only get 1 or 2 free lures and 1 or 2 free chances, and either of those chances might not drop a skin. Yeah, it's a fun experience. Now we get into the weird case, Freddy Frostbear. By all accounts, Frostbear should be a skin, but for some reason he was released as his own character and then also got a skin, which is pretty much just Frostbear but a little more frost. Black Ice Frostbear. The difference between Fazbear and Frostbear are pretty minimal, with the only thing being really that he can freeze the screen and you have to shake it to clear it up. But it was with the toy animatronics that the mechanics had a bit of a shake-up by involving more complicated methods. Starting with Toy Chica.
Playtime over.
She returns with the same voice she had in Ultimate Custom Night, plenty of new voice lines, and a revamped mechanic from FNAF 2, with the introduction of the mask. Basically, when she haywires and you look away, you also have to put on a mask. Seems simple enough, and with Toy Chica it is. It's just a matter of speed. Toy Chica had 2 skins. High Score Toy Chica, a blue virtual Toy Chica with a high score on her bib, who has a secondary form in a beakless Game Over Chica when confronted in-game, and Katrina Toy Chica, a Day of the Dead themed Toy Chica. I heard she got some pushback for cultural appropriation, but at the time I remember people just being upset because she was teased so hard that people were thinking it was a new animatronic and just turned out to be a skin. Now on to Toy Bonnie.
This game of cat and person is delicious.
And yes, from that faux chipmunk chatter, you can hear that Toy Bonnie has finally found his voice. If a semi-obnoxious one. And if that wasn't obnoxious, wait until you hear his gimmick. Basically the eye color thing from Springtrap, but also with the mask on the whole time. Eyes are white, stare all night. Eyes are red, you're dead. With the added mask mechanic, you would think Toy Bonnie would also be harder than Springtrap, but in my sole encounter with the guy, I found him a bit slower. Like the other Bonnies, Toy Bonnie is rocking a healthy skin count of 3, with System Error Toy Bonnie, a VR eye-sizzling red Toy Bonnie, Boulder Toy Bonnie, an eyeless statue bunny, and Sunken Toy Bonnie, a rough-looking waterlogged rabbit with almost pearlescent eyes. But he's not the only Toy Bonnie, if we take a look at his shadowy reflection. Seems as good a time as any to bring up the secret animatronic, the Shadow Bonnie, Request for Fast Fix. Well, technically I think it would actually be pronounced more Request Fuss Fax, but this is the one I prefer. Request for Fast Fix is a unique encounter as he cannot be collected in any way, suit, or CPU, and he won't be encountered under normal means. If you collect too much Dark Remnant in the Remnant Collecting minigame, he will spawn, and he will start coming directly for you. You have to shine your light on him repeatedly until he disappears, and then track him down and do it again and again until he is finally defeated. What's interesting, and I did not know this, I found this out on the wiki when I was double checking something, is that every time you encounter Shadow Bonnie, he will become more aggressive. And apparently after 10 goes at him, he will become virtually impossible to beat. Neat. Even though not a proper animatronic, I find this to be a cool addition, especially to a section of the game that is assumedly safe, being a penalty fight. But that's pretty much his contribution. Next is Toy Freddy.
Would you like to hear one of my copyrighted jingles?
Sporting new voice lines and a slightly softer personality from the salty gamer he was in Ultimate Custom Night. He too has the mask mechanic, but when he haywires you just have to look at him instead of looking away.
This is fun! Catch me if you can!
Toy Freddy has 3 skins. The purple VR mask wearing VR Toy Freddy, who turns red with white-yellow eyes when he attacks. The tree-like woodland Toy Freddy, and the steampunk aeronaut Toy Freddy. Now, Mangle is a special case. Well, aren't they always?
I must be made whole!
The deal with Mangle is that they don't play by the same charge and shock rules. Instead, Mangle will circle around and drop pieces that you have to collect. Then they will automatically be shocked once you have collected all of them. This was the biggest deviation in gameplay at the time, a significantly different style than, say, the addition of the mask mechanics, which, they're here too. If Mangle haywires, then you put on the mask and look away. They may also charge, in which you have to put on the mask because, again, you cannot tase them. Now, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I recall that for a while it was super difficult to actually get a Mangle encounter. It might have been a bug or something. Anyway, Mangle has 2 skins, Telekinetic Magician Mangle and the painted and bloomed Serpent Mangle. Now on to 8-Bit Baby. So as you recall, I said Freddy Frostbear is pretty much just a glorified skin. Well, 8-Bit Baby is pretty close to being that. But she's just different enough that I can understand why they made her a separate character. She plays a lot like normal Baby, just faster and harder to see, and she doesn't have any skins. Starting to take back that whole reason to be their own separate animatronic thing. Ballora returns, and surprisingly enough, her mechanics are somewhat like Mangle's. To an extent. You've got 2 meters on the bottom of the screen, a noise meter and a distance meter. The one goes up the closer you're looking towards Ballora, and the other goes up when you move too much. Noise is basically movement. You've got to keep turning away from Ballora while moving slowly and steadily. Alas, you have these little Klingons climbing forth in the form of Ballora's babies, the Mini-Renas. You have to shake them off before they climb too high, but without making enough noise, or moving around too much, or looking at Ballora, and then you collect the tiny dolls once they fall off, like Mangle's pieces. Once you collect enough of them, Ballora is automatically shocked. Ballora has 2 skins, Ice Queen Arctic Ballora and Living Music Box Clockwork Ballora. Now, here's an interesting note. Ballora doesn't have any voice lines in the game, but the story behind why is rather peculiar. So Illumix reached out to Michella Moss, Ballora's voice actress, to do voice lines for Ballora, and then they just never responded to her, never got back to her, and Ballora was released without any voice whatsoever, and even Miss Moss was surprised. Now I can't say for sure, but considering some of the issues surrounding FNAF AR and Illumix, which had like 2 or 3 employees when I checked back in early 2022, it could have been anything, but the lack of communication is unprofessional. There's nothing wrong with telling someone you can't use their services, or else you'll look like it took you this long to put in another character in the game and you couldn't even give her voice lines? Yeah. I've heard some people defend this by saying that Ballora is a noise-based animatronic. She's not, at least not in that sort of noise. See, the noise she's sensitive to is yours, but it's from you moving, not from you talking. So why would her having voice lines matter? It's not like you have to listen to Ballora do something specific. Again, it's not the lack of voice lines that's a problem. Both Miss Moss and Cameron Miller, Monty's voice actor, have mentioned some, questionable experiences with 2 separate companies working with FNAF, and I just hope this doesn't become a trend. But moving on. Jack-O-Chica returns again.
Greetings from the
She basically functions as a harder, faster Chica who can, at times, cover the screen in smoke so you have to shake it off. To little surprise, she doesn't have any skins. And when there's Jack-O-Chica's smoke, there's Jack-O-Bonnie's fire. Don't at me, I'm tired. But jokes aside, Jack-O-Bonnie does the same smoke trick and has the same speed. He's basically a lot like Jack-O-Chica, but for some reasons, he doesn't have any lines. Likely because he didn't have any in Ultimate Custom Night, but that didn't stop some characters from getting them. Poor Jack-O-Bonnie getting the short end of the stick. But now it's time for another major shakeup in mechanics with the arrival of Plushtrap. This little guy is a big deal. Instead of the typical spin situation, when you have to go up against Plushtrap, you are dropped into an AR battlefield that looks like a hallway, and you have to power up generators as he creeps towards you, and then shock him before he reaches you, making sure to keep looking at him to stop him in place. Your basic Weeping Angel red light green light thing, but the fact that it actually puts you in a special location to do so is really neat. It's no wonder that this came back later for the Dark Circus Encore, but it is a shame that this is really the only time it's used in an animatronic encounter. But as a plus, Plushtrap gets 2 skins, and both of these skins have unique hallways. I mean, they're still the same hallway layout, but Frost Plushtraps is snowy, and the hideous Piranha Plushtraps is underwater and decorated with seagrass and aquatic plants. That's something. To be entirely honest, I kinda wish more of the animatronics had environments like this instead of just spinning in my living room. Not only because you could have made it easier just to look forward, left, and right, but because it feels a lot more immersive. Now we're on to Golden Freddy, also known as God Why Won't You Die, because this character has an exceptionally lengthy battle segment. Golden Freddy shows up and he just doesn't want to leave. He has 3 phases where he acts like other animatronics, and during which he can either mimic Freddy, Toy Freddy, Springtrap, Mangle, or Ballora. But wait, it gets more intense. So, the second you enter the battle, you have got to figure out pretty quickly into the encounter who you're actually going up against. If it's Mangle and Ballora, you'll pick up pretty quickly, but if it's anyone else, you're having to circle around and try to think. If it's haywiring, it's Springtrap. If the static is this length, it's this character. If it's this length, it's that character, but you can't really see the static for any of them. Golden Freddy is a pain in the neck, especially when you're giving yourself whiplash trying to track him down. And just to clarify, if you are having the same issues I was with crashing, there is no defeating Golden Freddy. He will drag you around until that game crashes. But if you are more fortunate, you're still in for a bit of a lengthy go at it. Golden Freddy's going to make you work for that gold, especially if you're unfortunate enough to get Mangle, Ballora, and Springtrap. Oof. Golden Freddy doesn't have any voice lines and only one skin, Great Escape Golden Freddy, who was in fact the last skin released for the game and was acquirable through the DLC, which I will cover later. Last character who was released into the game, Funtime Freddy.
Don't worry, I'll visit you in your dreams tonight.
Now, Funtime Freddy's mechanics are slightly different from normal mechanics by having a second phase, but he basically plays the same. So Funtime Freddy circles in haywires and mock charges, but once you shock him, instead of winning, Bon Bon comes out to play.
Hey, watch it! You almost stepped on me!
Bon Bon is a tiny animatronic who will basically do the same thing before charging you. Shock him and you win. Miss him and he charges up Funtime Freddy, who gets up again and starts it all over again. He is fast, but otherwise his mechanics are the same ones you're familiar with, so you know what you're doing. Funtime Freddy doesn't have any skins either. So that's it, that's the lineup of animatronics. There was another character teased who was pretty much finished, but I'll address that in the cut content section. As you've probably noticed, while the characters went on, their gimmicks became more unique and advanced, sometimes leading to longer and more strategic encounters, which is pretty neat, and some of these encounters definitely felt more lively than the standard spin and spot. But you can probably see how this would be an issue with those hiccups I mentioned in the crashes sections. But there was another bit of an issue too, one not confirmed but seems to be the case. See, characters started releasing steadily, initially releasing even monthly, which might have been a little too quick, but still, but then began to slow down towards the end of its short lifetime. And I wonder if that's because it went from basic mechanic changes to having such huge changes in playstyle. While I give a thumbs up on the creativity, this might have shot the creators in the foot, or hammered another nail in the coffin. This also means that while all of the original characters had at least 1 or 2 skins, quite a few of the later ones didn't have any at all. When it comes to the skins, I won't be ranking the skins here. That's something I'll do in my spare time. It would take me a while to deconstruct my thoughts, but I'll say that my stance are, some are good, some are meh. I know that's not a super hot take, but it does seem like there are folks that lean either way, into they're all pretty good, into they're all really bad. Now, it has never been confirmed for FNAF AR, but this recent FNAF Roblox leak, if you haven't heard of it, yes, there was a FNAF Roblox leak, confirmed that Scott has to give his approval on skins. His words, so there is a chance that Scott okayed every skin in AR as well. In fact, it would be odd if he didn't, considering the Roblox thing. Why that is important is because Illumix did get some flack for some of these skins, either because they were too samey or situations like the Day of the Dead Chica, but that means this wasn't all on their hands. Though then again, who initially designed these skins is unknown. I'm assuming it's Illumix, but maybe it wasn't. This is really not important, so I'm just gonna move on. But I will say again that this is part of the reason that photo booth section was so important. If improved, it would have really benefited the game. Imagine showing off your skins in different pictures and stuff. That would have been pretty fun and given you reason to really want to collect these skins, because other than some minor aesthetic changes and occasionally gameplay alters, the skins are pretty much useless once you collect them. And yes, on a personal note, it is baffling that the rabbit characters, specifically Springtrap and Bonnie, got 4 skins apiece, and some characters didn't even get 1 or 2. Like, at least throw Freddy a third. He's literally the star. Now, time to get on to the real fun stuff, the microtransactions. Like many mobile games, FNAF AR had microtransactions. The main source of these being Faz tokens. You buy Faz tokens to buy perks in the shop, or just buy the perks, which tend to consist of battery refills and lures. See, some specialty animatronics you won't encounter unless you use a lure, such as the event animatronics, who you usually get 1 or maybe 2 lures from per event. And if there's more than 1 animatronic, you will only sometimes get a lure for both. Usually you only get 1 lure for one up front, and the other later, maybe. In some cases, you are able to buy skins and CPUs. This was very rare in the beginning of the game, I recall, but became more common later on, with you usually offered a suit for a character just released or an event skin. These were significantly more pricey, and sometimes you couldn't use Faz tokens. You would have to pay outright. Now, currently the shop is on a major discount for the end of life sale, so I went back to dig into these prices and see what I could find. First off, here are or were the basic prices. 500 Faz tokens for $5, 1,200 tokens for $10, 2,600 tokens for $20, 5,400 tokens for $40, 8,700 tokens for $60, 15,000 tokens for $100. So right off the bat, if you didn't have many tokens saved up from the occasional ad and event, photo booth mode was stuck behind a $40 paywall. There's no way about it, because you would either have to pay $40 up front or two 20s. That is steep for a major feature. I continued digging and found some pics online. Here's one for supposedly a year after launch that shows some mini packs that seem to have the skins and likely the CPU. So, to calculate these as though you had no Faz tokens, since they are so time consuming, and using the pack you would have to buy to get enough tokens, Balloon Boy is $10, as are Chica and Foxy on their own. Circus Baby is $15 to $20, with the 20 being the better deal. Springtrap is $20. Toy Chica is $40. And you may say, oh, people will likely have tokens. True, but at 10 to 25 tokens a pop, with both of them limited to ads, events, or random chances, you are not collecting enough that quickly. You'll have to have been playing for a long time and hope you don't miss out on an event or deal. But that still, these prices are outrageous. You know, some mobile games have deals where when you spend money, you actually get bonuses. A game that comes to mind is a dress-up game called Love Nikki, where spending gives you bonuses like extra slots and extra rewards and beautiful dresses. FNAF AR does not have anything like that. it doesn't matter how much you purchase, there's no, like, extra perks for purchasing. Here's a picture of the Plushtrap party pack that contains a suit, 5 lures, and 3 extra batteries. That means 1 suit, 5 consumables, and 3 times rechargeable consumables. It is £24, which converts to $30. In contrast, you could buy 2 FNAF plushies, or 2 FNAF shirts, or if you get there on a discount, probably mix and match more. You could buy a pizza tower and still have $10 aside to buy Bendy and the Dark Revival, which is on sale for $6 now, but I'm making a point. And Oddworld Abe's Exodus, and have a little pocket change left. 3 games for 1 suit. These prices are outrageous. And yes, I know a mobile game needs to keep themselves afloat through monetization, but here is the problem. There's just not enough here to monetize. See, sure, the skins make sense, but the other thing they're selling are lures. Most of the time, you're buying lures. You're buying chances to get characters instead of characters. It's kind of like gambling almost, because it's not a skill issue when the game crashes constantly. And that affects this game in a way you might not expect. It is unfriendly to whales. What do I mean? So what is a whale? A whale is a player who dumps a lot of money into microtransactions. Forget a buck here or there. Whales are what keep mobile games going. Is it healthy to dump that much cash into a game? Probably not. But these heavily monetized games thrive on these relationships. But FNAF AR's slow release in characters and targets towards selling lures over skins, at least initially, and not having much else to monetize meant that there really wasn't a reason to drop that much cash into the game. So whales were not encouraged to break out their wallet. This just suddenly came to me while I was recording this. This seems absolutely baffling, but we could have mixed this Love Nikki thing up with FNAF AR. They should have sold costumes for the animatronics. I know that sounds stupid, but that would have, like, pretty much solved this. Just monetize the hell out of, like, little Christmas costumes for the animatronics. Hey, you've got Freddy. You want to put a hat on Freddy? Here you go. 25 cents, put a hat on Freddy. Well, I know it definitely wouldn't be that cheap, but, like, imagine a perfect world where you could pay 25 cents to give your Freddy a nice Christmas hat. That actually probably would have fixed a lot of this. But I digress. Anyway, we'll discuss the final delivery discount later on, but basically the game's last update was a discount on all shop prices before the game's gone for good. This isn't too unusual. Some games will give gifts before they close, or offer some other presents if they're asking their users to, like, switch servers or something. It's pretty standard stuff, so I don't have much to say. But looking at every tiny issue with FNAF AR, I would say that the monetization was probably the main reason why it started to go downhill. The prices are too high to attract easy money, and there's not enough to offer to bring those prices down, perhaps, or to bring in someone who's willing to pay those prices. Though I would argue that maybe, in the long run, dozens of tiny microtransactions may pay off better than a few big ones. Though, then again, like I said, whales make the industry, so what do I know? Another issue was what I said with the characters. There's plenty of FNAF characters they didn't put in the game. But the problem was that as the mechanics became more complicated, it took more time and resources to make these characters, and the player count was likely bleeding over time. In the beginning, issues got fixed, but other issues came in, especially with these new mechanics. For example, there was an update where the characters took more hits to die. That's okay, but I heard and can't confirm that there were bugs and loading issues that cropped up after that update. I can't tell you because as of right now, I still can't even get the app to load. Like, for this video, I tried to boot up my app because I had it saved on my phone. I could not get it to load through. So, I can't be the only one. All of these issues led to a steady decline of FNAF AR, and that was when it took its dying breath with the DLC expansion known as the Dark Circus Encore. Encore was both an impressive sign of what FNAF AR could have done and how cool and immersive special delivery could have been, and the final nail in the coffin that the game was born into. I also learned today that Dark Circus was apparently supposed to be the first piece of episodic content for the game. The irony being that it was, in fact, the last update the game ever received is not lost on me. So what is the Dark Circus Encore? Well, instead of another Dark Circus event, like the one where ringleader Foxy, magician Mangle, and clown Springtrap were all released, it is instead a sort of AR experience. You are dropped into this eerie circus tent full of halls, oddities, and puzzles. Inside are ringleader Foxy and Ballora, who are chained, and a mysterious third sealed in a water-filled box. You are timed to get the puzzles done, and then encounter Foxy and Ballora one-on-one. Now, since this is a paid expansion, you can keep trying. They're not one-and-dones like the lore. It doesn't matter if you die, you can keep coming back. And you can replay it after it's done. Once you finish the puzzles and take them out, the case is knocked over and there's a cutscene signaling the battle with Great Escape Golden Freddy. And it is a battle because, in case you forgot, this silly old bear has 3 phases. Once he's defeated, there's a short cutscene and the DLC ends. Note that Foxy and Ballora also have cutscenes before their battles. You are given the Great Escape Golden Freddy skin upon completion, but really the DLC is for the experience more than the reward, and it's a pretty neat experience. The highlight is the atmosphere of the location, which is much more detailed in comparison to the simple hallways with Plushtrap. You can wander around, listening to the creaking and wind around you, looking at the dirtied colors and old furniture, and coming across the animatronics, who are at first in a limp state before waking up and emoting with their workshop animations as you pass, and then become more aggressive and start trying to attack you. If FNAF AR really was like this, little episodic chunks of AR environments, puzzles, and encounters sold at a reasonable price, then I feel like FNAF Special Delivery really would have lived up to its name. I especially love that the animatronic encounters are actually in AR rooms instead of the hall space between my living room and bathroom. The downside is... well, firstly, it isn't FNAF AR and there weren't any more episodes. Maybe because it didn't sell well? Well, there was certainly one thing that kept it from selling well. By the way, the price is $20. Yes, $20. Okay, in comparison to the other transactions, it sounds like a deal, right? Well, it's not. The price is, if I may, ridiculous. Cool atmosphere and experience or not, this is a short segment with a few puzzles, 3 encounterable animatronics, and only 1 guaranteed skin for $20. For $10 more, you can get Help Wanted on Steam. So yeah, $20 for this is outrageous. And yes, I know it's currently on discount, but up until now, $20. It's more like a $10 experience? Well, that's being generous. Sister location is, what, $8? Well, whatever. So what I'm thinking is that this was a way to test the waters and see if there was another way to make this profitable. Maybe there wasn't really episodic content planned, per se, but instead it was to see if they could recoup some funds, and if it was successful, they could make more of them. I don't know how many folks purchased this, but it must have not given the desired boost, as this was the last update, and Great Escape Golden Freddy was the last skin released. I'm not sure if he stayed a DLC exclusive, but a big oof if he did. And then it was radio silence for 2 long years until Illumix unexpectedly posted that the game was going to be shut down, thanking the community for all their support, yada yada, and now we're inching towards the final end. Now, before I continue into the stuff that didn't make it into the game, there was a small theory going around that FNAF AR's ending was planned, and that because it happened shortly before Security Breach released, that this was part of the meta-narrative. No. First of all, if that was the intended ending, wouldn't they say something instead of 2 years of radio silence? Especially since, as I will get into, almost all of the information that connected the 2 games was cut. And especially since there wasn't any last character confirmation to Security Breach's release. It's not like it ended with Vanny or the Glamrocks. Oh, by the way, they did say at one point, either Scott or someone at Illumix said that the Glamrocks were going to be in FNAF AR. So there we go, there was confirmation that the game was supposed to continue past Security Breach, but it didn't come to pass. But the more important thing is, do you really think that a spin-off mobile game would halt all production just because a mainline game came out? No. With the weird posting schedule, the weird issues with communication, and that whole 3 employees thing, I think Illumix might have run into some issues, and this happened. This happened to mobile games. It just happened kind of fast. But maybe not. So now we arrive at the final delivery update. It's a discount. Moving on. Time to get into what I teased earlier with Funtime Freddy and Golden Freddy, and the biggest allusion to how off-track FNAF AR got. There was a finished but unreleased character, and I mean finished as in models done, animations done, even a teaser picture was finished, and yet it was not posted into the final game. And before you believe Scott might have just given it a no, he would have given a no before the character was teased in the initial teaser before the game was released, not when its own teaser was created. Someone was practically entirely finished, but never made it into the game. Before we discuss that, let's discuss the multitude of other cut content, just to keep baiting you along. Cut content is given with any game, but what was cut from FNAF AR is insane. Not just an entirely finished animatronic, but pretty much the entire backstory and a laundry list of teasers for Security Breach. I'm not kidding. Everything we truly know about Vanessa's possession, the transition between Help Wanted and Security Breach, her relation with her co-workers, how she acquired Glitchtrap and got him into the Pizzaplex, her change in personality, her favorite kind of cake, all of that was found in cut emails that were supposed to be teased in FNAF AR. Things like Vanessa's last name and age, how her dual personality was affecting her life, the process of her uploading Glitchtrap into the programs, and his effect on her were all in these emails, making this the very first time of many that Vanessa's role was butchered. One of the most important facts about Vanessa is hidden in these emails. Like, you know how Vanessa was supposedly innocent and Glitchtrap is controlling her and she's really good? Well, FNAF AR is the only piece of FNAF media that directly tells us that Glitchtrap is threatening her. He's threatening to break her fingers and toes, he's sending her flowers for her grave, he's doing some really sick stuff. Some sick stuff that would have definitely made that scene with Vanny at the end of Help Wanted 2 a lot more impactful if it was common knowledge. And it's more telling because a few of the emails did make it in, only to cut off midway through, like the Lewis emails, where Vanessa talks to a friend she mentions in Security Breach, Lewis, as he gets more concerned about her and keeps asking her out constantly even though she never reciprocates. I think these emails just not releasing was probably a management issue, maybe a timing issue, because after Security Breach came out, there maybe wasn't a reason to keep posting them. Well, then again, they weren't posting anything after Security Breach came out. That was after November. While it doesn't damage AR much, it isn't doing SB any favors. But there's something bigger than Security Breach's story hiding in this cut content. Case in point, Lefty, model, finished, animations, finished, teaser, finished, in files confirmed via data mine. Lefty was teased in the first teaser of the game, alongside Funtime Freddy, and expected to be the final hurrah, but while Funtime Freddy barely squeezed in, Lefty did not. Which is very odd because the Dark Circus Encore made it. Realistically, you could have stuck Lefty in there somewhere, or released him even now in the last hurrah of the game. But nah, Lefty is lost media. Well, sorta. You forget lost media and we're never gonna forget Lefty. And now, we have finally reached the end. So what really killed FNAF AR? Lefty. It was Lefty. Everything this bear touches dies. It killed the puppet's chances of getting in, and in retaliation, the puppet broke into the server room and stole as much copper wire out of the walls as it could, and now there's no money to finish Frankenstein Freddy's pumpkin-headed debut. Okay, no, let's be frank. FNAF AR was a mobile game that went out of its way to try and sew in the franchise's main game mechanics in a new and interesting way. It was a really neat concept, with creepy animations and voice lines allowing us to get an even better look at and listen to many of our most beloved FNAF animatronics and Balloon Boy. In concept, it really went above and beyond, but in execution, it had issues. The monetization needed work, and for myself and some others, it didn't run very well. You were frequently spending time trying to get back to where you were, and it wasn't the type of game where you could do that easily. Again, it was the type of mobile game best played at home, so you carved out a big section of demographic with that decision alone. And yeah, that's kind of what killed FNAF AR, really. It was a mobile game that sort of wasn't a mobile game. At least, it lacked that pick-up-and-play gameplay that many games have. You cannot play this game on the toilet, or at the dentist, or in your car. Games like, well, not while you're driving, of course, but you get me. Mobile games tend to survive on being games that you can play in your free time. FNAF AR was the sort of mobile game that needed you at your house, or at least in a well-lit bathroom that you can spin around in. And look, I'm not just ragging on FNAF AR. The truth is, it's important to see what went wrong because because it might just happen again. So recently a new FNAF game released and got cut. This sort of Roblox official FNAF game that came out buggy, unfinished, and with a lot of microtransactions. But no worries. Scott assured us that this was an accident. He was telling them okay to a skin, and they thought he said to release the game. Gosh, Scott has been having a lot of these accidents recently. Like when he accidentally released that version of the FNAF movie novel that was exactly the same, except fan favorite Doug just happened to be a perverted creep in it. No comment. Hey, I get to be a little cheeky. I did all my proofreading myself and I sucked at it. But nothing slipped by. Well, except for the weird word replacements and errors. But I digress. Best of time, worst of times, moving on. Point is, let that be a lesson to the lot of ya. Pay for a proofreader. The point is, again, this analysis wasn't ever to say FNAF AR was awful. In actuality, I wanted to play it and I did like the concept. There were just issues with the execution, and they should really be taken into account before the next game like this, in one way or another, releases. Because I do feel like FNAF AR could have really made it. Dark Circus Encore showed the game sort of at its best, and it's sad that we got a glimpse of what the game could have been before the lid closed and it was lowered into the ground. Rest in peace, FNAF AR. You gave us one mini Rena skin and no Lefty, and I feel like that was a proper trade-off. Thank you for watching.